Thank you for joining the CoreCommerce webinar. It is October 6th, 2020, and today's topic is using multiple languages. We're going to talk about what the feature is, why you would use it, and how you would set it up. Let's go ahead and get started. Multiple languages is a feature that allows you to put your store into different languages at the same time and be able to flip a switch to go from language A to language B. So the benefits of that and the why would be, number one, if you want to sell to multiple countries around the world, let's say you sell in the US and in Spain or and in Mexico, for example, you could have your store in English and available in Spanish as well. It would allow you to not have to have two different websites in two different languages and keeping track of two different sets of products and all this and that and the other. It also allows you to sell items, if you have items that are very cultural specific, it might do you some good to have some of either the description be in Spanish or just have a Spanish version of it, for example. It comes in handy for those types of situations as well. Benefits of it: non-English speaking customers can access your site and understand it without using Google Translate and I should say, other inefficient apps. And I'll talk a bit about Google Translate here in just a second. Also, international customers, have a lot more confidence if they can see the site in their native language and buy from you instead of having to deal with a site in English. I know personally, although I speak a little Spanish, obviously English is my native language. And when I see a site that's in Spanish or in a different language, I just obviously am a lot less confident that what I'm doing is what I'm supposed to be doing. So um, with that said, some people would ask, why not just use Google Translate? The biggest issue I've seen with Google Translate is that it's going to cause some literal translations of what you write down or what you say. And if you write down a paragraph in English and it translates it to Spanish, it's going to do its best to try to translate it verbatim. And sometimes it does it okay, sometimes it does not. And the actual translation you would prefer your customers to read about a product is not exactly what Google would say it is. And the other aspect of it is you can't control what Google does. Google's going to translate it the way it sees fit, and there's nothing you can do about it. With our tool, you could control exactly what it says and how it's worded. If there's any slang that needs to be said, if there's just a slang way to say something that you'd like to put into your description or your names, you can do that. To set up multiple languages, the first thing you do is you got to turn it on. So we're going to go into your admin under site content in multiple languages, and you click on that link there as shown in that screenshot. And you'll get taken to a screen like this where you can enable whatever languages you want. By default, our system is going to come with English, Spanish, Hindi for India, and Portuguese. You could turn on any or all of these if you'd like and choose which one is the default. Default just meaning when somebody goes to your main website, if they've never been there before, what language do I show them first? And of course they can switch it, but it knows which language to load. Once you've decided which languages you want, the next step is to go into your products and your categories and your content pages and make all of these translations. Now, in the screenshot I'm showing you here, there's an example of me editing a product name. And you'll notice that when multiple languages is on, when you get to fields that have language specific values, typically it looks like it's blank when you first go to it. But what happens is when you click on it, you'll see the menu pop up underneath. And then you can click on the word English and then type in the English translation and then click on English again, and it will save the English translation in the English slot. And then you do the same thing for Spanish. And when you see them all in there, you can save. And that's how you know they're all saved in the database. You can do that for product names, category names, content pages, things of that nature. Now, when you're messing with the descriptions, with product descriptions, category descriptions, the contents of a content page, you'll have these Wysiwyg editors that you can use to put in, formatted content. And those support the multiple languages as well. So as you can see, when multiple languages are enabled, underneath the editor, you'll see a little select language drop down there, and you can pick English or Spanish, and it works the same way. And if I were to tap on Espanol, it would reload, and then I would see a different editor that's in blank in this case, just so you could see the difference. And you could then type in the Spanish version of that description. Once you have gotten all of your products and categories and content pages translated the way you want, the next step is to change anything if you want, and you can do this step at any point. There's no reason to have to do it at this stage, but you could do it at any time. Is if you ever want to change a string that CoreCommerce controls, it'll give you the ability to modify it. So let's say, for example, in English, you don't like the phrase "add to cart." You'd rather be "add to bag." And so you can come in here and find that string and change it to say "add to bag," and it will just use "add to bag" going forward on your store. You can edit English that way. You can edit Spanish that way. If you want to edit any language other than the current one you're in, if you log out of your admin, then you'll notice on this screen here when you're logging in, if you have more than one language enabled, you'll see this drop down so that you can pick which language you want to log in with. You log in the same way. It does not change your username or your password. And when you log in, then when you go back to this screen, you'll notice all the column where it says language, it'll say Spanish all through there. And then you can go and edit the actual Spanish strings if you'd like. And that includes the titles, the sentences, all the different little pieces of what you might see in the shopping cart that's built into the shopping cart is translatable into these different languages. So now once you've gotten all that configured, now the last step is to give your customer a way to flip the switch. And so to do that, you'd go to Site Content and then Sidebar Widgets, and you would find the Languages widget and drag it into your design. The Languages widget is in the drop-down widgets section of this editor. And so when you mouse over what's in the middle and you pick drop-down widgets, you'd see languages in there. And what I did is just take languages and drag it to the left and make it the first choice on the left and save. When I do that, here's the visual representation of what that does. And I'm on a CoreCommerce store page now, and you'll see that language widget is sitting there above categories. And in order to switch it to Spanish, I just need to open that drop-down menu and pick Spanish, and it will automatically flip the switch for me. Now, on the next screen, I'm going to show you what happens when you flip the switch, and you may notice something a little weird. And I'm going to explain why it's like that. I did it on purpose, just so you could kind of see what happens. So when I flip to Spanish, here's that same page in Spanish. Notice all the widget headers are in Spanish. The page where it said specials is now written in Spanish. The product name is only in Spanish because we actually translated blue shirt into Spanish ourselves. But every other string that's controlled by CoreCommerce itself was automatically changed. Now, the one thing you might notice, if I go back here, is the categories. There are 5 categories on this page, and on this one, there are none. And the reason for that is because those 5 categories, I did not, and I did this on purpose, go in there and create Spanish category names. So it's important to note that if you have multiple languages on and you have a category or a product that does not have the appropriate name for that language, it can't show it and it won't show it because it doesn't want to show blank. So make sure that if you're using this feature that you're translating all your category names, your product names, your content page contents, things of that nature. And that's really it. And the customers can switch their languages out back and forth as many times as they want. Doesn't matter. It'll let them flip over and over and over again. The storefront works the same way. It's just showing you different languages. So again, very useful feature if you're ever going to sell internationally, if you're ever going to just want to sell in multiple countries, if you just, or if you just need to use a cart that comes in pre-built in Spanish, if you're going to sell just in Mexico, for example, then you could do that too. And have a store where Spanish is the only language. So with all that said, that ends this webinar. Short and sweet today, but it's a useful feature and comes in handy. Not only if you want to put something into 2 different languages or 3 different languages, but if you want to go in there and modify the way the cart is worded and phrased, it gives you the ability to literally change any string you want and make it say whatever you want. So it works out pretty well. If you have any questions about this feature or anything else, please send me an email. I'm happy to respond, kris@corecommerce.com. And as always, thank you for watching and have a great day.